Thank you so much, Ben, and good morning, everybody. Absolutely delighted to be with the host city community today. So as Ben says, welcome to Panel 9, how we judge the success of conferences in this post-COVID world and post-COP26 world as well. So let me first of all introduce the speakers today. So we have Laura Lopez, who is the Director of Conference Affairs at the United Nations Framework for the Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC. We also have Martin Boyle with us, the CEO of the International Association of Professional Congress Organisers, IAPCO. We have Zhanna Kovalchuk, the Executive Director of the European Society of Sports Traumatology, Knee Surgery and Arthroscopy, and Zhanna's colleague Jenny Ennis, who is the ESSKA Congress and Events Manager. And I'm Aileen Crawford, the Head of Tourism and Conventions at Glasgow Life. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for contributing to this very important topic and session for the meetings industry today. So first of all, can we come to yourself, Laura, after delivering COP26 in our fair city? Can I ask you how you measure success and return on investment for the UN Conference on Climate Change, first of all?
Well, thank you, Aileen, and welcome to everyone. I think that the first thing to say is the meeting took place. We had an amazing turnout. We had the most people that we've had at any of our COPs, our annual Conference of the Parties, to discuss climate change policy. We had over 38,000. We're used to getting about 25 to 30. So it was really a validation among our participants who are countries. The negotiators come from countries. We also have civil society. We have NGOs, IGOs, we have media, and we have all sorts of others, the host country, for example. So the fact that we were able to put 38,000 plus people together for more than 2 weeks and have fewer than 100 COVID cases is absolutely amazing. So for us, the measure of success is it took place, people were able to do their work, they were able to stay, by and large, safe and healthy, and we were able to finish on the negotiations on the Paris Agreement rulebook, which had been going on for quite a few years. And we were able to do that with partners, the UK government, the Scottish government, keeping people safe, also with Police Scotland, for example. So by all accounts, it was a successful event. The problem now is how do we continue along this path when we get so many people? We have to really rethink how we can make this a sustainable exercise, because I don't think we can continue to host 38,000 people at every venue, but it really was a tribute to all of the partners that we had.
That's great. Thank you very much for that overview, Laura. Fascinating. And I think the UN Conference on Climate Change is a great example of where the topic of the conference is fundamental. And you've almost led that way of this is the conference legacy because of what you are pushing forward through policy change. Have you seen that change over time?
We have. I think the reason that we had such an amazing turnout is just that people realized that climate change was not going to wait for any of our other considerations or viruses. The issues are just so urgent, especially in the last year or so through the pandemic. So many countries saw the effects of climate change in terms of natural disasters. And some of them, many of them, experienced several natural disasters compounded one after the other. So I think that there was finally a recognition that we have to get back to the negotiating room, and we have to do this because survival is really at stake. Some of the island countries in our final plenary said, you know, if we continue to wait and put targets that are far into the future, for us, we're underwater. You know, it's survival for us. So it was really a very emotional meeting in the end. It wasn't easy, but we did get a lot of successes. So I think just the fact that climate change touches everyone is one of the reasons that people made such extraordinary efforts to be there.
Thank you, Laura. Over to yourself, Zhanna, and from an ESSKA perspective, what we've been through and what you and your teams have been through, how do you judge success of your ESSKA Congress now?
Thank you, Aileen. And to continue on the comment from Laura, what success means for you. If we imagine success as a list of different points, and you need to tick all the points, and then you can consider your activity a success, or whatever you do is a success. I'm sure even within this panel, if we had a bit more time, we could expand this list and make up with quite a good overview of what are the ingredients of this secret recipe of success. To simplify, I will stop on two main points. I would say, in addition to what Laura already mentioned, that of course safety of people and is extremely important, and delivering the meeting in the first place is important. For us, the 2 points, and they are points from a different side of the spectrum, are whether what you do is still following your mission. And for us, for ESSKA Association, which is dedicated to education and science in the field of orthopedics, everything what we do should be a delivery of high quality education and science. Whether we managed to deliver such a meeting, whatever format it was, yes, we managed, and we think that our quick restructuring and change from in-person event to a virtual congress this year, as many of us association professionals did, went successfully. On the other side, if to talk about very practical elements, for an organizer of the event, the financial side of the meeting is also extremely important, because for many associations, especially if these are small or medium-sized organizations, revenue from your main event is very often one of the major, or sometimes is the only source of revenue for an association, and it ensures that you can carry on doing what you do, carry on launching projects, provide education, work on scientific projects. So we shall not forget about this very simple but practical element as well. So in a very simplistic way, I can say that on our side from ESSKA, yes, we managed to deliver a successful meeting, even though for our field, of course, in-person format is more preferable. So we work with doctors who need to touch things, who need to try things. So I guess the format, hybrid, virtual, in-person, really depends very much also on the field, on the area of your specialty. And for us, this 2020 and 2021, the present year, has been successful in a sense that we managed to develop an online program of education which has its audience, but at the same time we also decided to go back to an in-person event next year, because we understand that for our specialty it is also critical that people can meet in person and can see things, touch things, can discuss things, can see what are the new products, what is the new technology out there. So in a way, we covered both formats, and we satisfy different target audience, if you wish. And of course, we listened to our members who said, virtual format is excellent, and it was an excellent meeting, but we look forward to meet in person again, because nothing can change this, the feeling you have from being at place, the feeling of the venue, the feeling of the city where you are and people you meet, and you want to look into someone's eyes, you want to finally be able to shake hands. Hopefully we'll be able to do it.
Very much, Zhanna. And sticking with the ESSKA Congress and the success of the conference and how that's changed through the in-person to the virtual, Jenny, you've worked on conference legacy projects pre-COVID and pre-COP and the sustainable world of meetings that we're all looking at the moment. Can I ask you your thoughts on this conference legacy? And is that still very much part of what you say is a success for ESSKA, to do some work with the local public in the cities that you're meeting in?
Yes, Aileen, absolutely. And in fact, as you well know, we held our biennial congress in Glasgow in 2018, our last in-person congress. So it's still very fresh in our minds. And in fact, we did a number of projects in Glasgow, very much in partnership with the city and the country and the local societies. And a couple of examples are delivering lectures to the general public, going beyond the walls of the Congress Centre, which is not always the case. A lot of the time you focus so much on the programme and what you're delivering inside that you forget where you are, and there's a whole world and a whole community to welcome as well. So we delivered lectures to the general public. We also had a Cycling for Science initiative, which was launched some years ago. But the basic idea is delivering the message of sport and exercise and well-being through cycling. And in this case, it was a week-long tour of Scotland, culminating in the big arrival in Glasgow at the Congress Centre. So that was really a way to get the local city involved, as I say, the national societies, and also the country as a whole. So for us, legacy is very important. I think it's crucial that you give enough weight to the place that you're in. Have to remember, in a cycle of a Congress of our size, which is more or less 4,000 people, the city and the country has played a key role from at least 6 years in advance from the bid process. Obviously not as long as an Olympic bid, as per the speaker earlier. However, it's also very, very important. So I think you really have to identify the opportunities that are there to build wider networks, whether it be the academic community, in our case, the medical community, but also communities who may have an interest in what you're doing and who may not be an obvious target when you're planning, for example, your scientific program. So legacy is very important. I think it's perhaps fallen off the agenda a little bit in the pandemic period, because we've all been focused on pivoting to virtual events. Obviously, legacy is a bit harder to put at the forefront when it's a virtual event. Finance has obviously overtaken a lot of our thoughts in this difficult period. But I think now we're moving back to in-person events. Legacy does, in fact, become very important again. And I think it can enrich your Congress, it can enrich your society, but it can also help enrich the links you have with the city and the country as a whole.
Thank you very much, Zhanna, and it's great to hear from Zhanna, Jenny, Laura around what success looks like now. And Jenny gave some great examples there of that conference legacy, and flagging that that's still very much seen as part of an in-person and important legacy for the host destination, which is great to hear the examples that you gave there, Jenny. So Martin, can I bring you in now as the CEO of IAPCO, your global professional conference organizer community, working with the big associations, small associations, helping support them in what success looks like. Have your members seen that change in the conversations around planning meetings since the pandemic and that sustainable world that the conference organisers are looking at the moment?
Oh, absolutely, without question, Aileen. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on this panel. It's great to be with everyone today. Yeah, look, 2020 saw an immediate flip to virtual meetings, as Zhanna and Jenny were discussing. And, I guess one of the real positive outcomes of that transition to that virtual technology in delivering that knowledge exchange for a lot of international and regional associations around the globe is that those associations have been able now to tap into a much wider audience base than they potentially have ever done so before, because of the simple, whether it's economics of people from different parts of the world traveling to a Congress in person, or whether it was just socio-political challenges that maybe they had that restricted their travel to those conferences in person. So, yes, it's been very challenging for many, but though those associations have experienced a real uptake in attendance, and we're hearing that across our whole membership base from their clients. ICA, for example, one of our industry bodies, released some data this year from 2020 events that took place, of over, I think, 8,000 events that they surveyed, and they saw a 50% uptake in audience participation Granted, it was virtual, but of course there was an increase, and we are seeing something similar, closer to 60% across what our members are delivering for their clients. But as we sort of move forward, the hybrid is now becoming the default sort of architecture, if you will, of a meeting. And opportunities, but there's also some challenges as well, I think. And the financial model of pulling together an in-person event and a virtual event, it's almost like running two events in one. So the cost implications for the event budget, and as Zhanna was mentioning, a lot of associations rely, of course, on their annual meeting generating funds to support their annual activities. So we're seeing a real shift in what that model looks like. But the really interesting thing, I think, and what we're going to see moving forward is taking that hybrid concept away from just being, instead of the 3 days of being on site, transferring it to 3 days of on site and 3 days of online. We're actually seeing that online program being substantially extended. So you're almost creating content over this of 2 or 3 months for that membership and that community. And in that sense, some of it can be repackaged and sold to that audience or to new audiences that maybe are not members of a society or association, but need that knowledge nonetheless. So we're starting to see some really interesting revenue streams, I guess, and revenue models coming into associations. Very, very early stages, granted, at this point. But a lot of what our members are speaking about with their clients is, how do we prolong the life cycle then of that event? How do we take that hybrid technology and monetize it so that the association can earn some revenue from that, but that knowledge exchange can continue? So it's really exciting times. Challenging, of course, but very exciting for everyone.
Thank you very much, Martin, for wrapping that up and remembering the practical side, the financial side, the legacy side. It's all still there. It's just maybe wrapped up in a different model, and the support of the wider industry is hopefully something that is there to allow the associations to transition and try new things and see what the world of the in-person events look like. And on that point, just as we come into our last sort of 10-15 minutes together, I'd be really interested to go around the speakers and ask you, where can the meetings industry support? Do you have some top level help, hints, tips? This is where we need you to step up and step into some support for us to help deliver the meetings of your future. So coming back to yourself, Laura, just to finish up, how can the meetings industry help you? Have you got any top tips for those that are watching the session today?
Well, my top tip is be like Glasgow, because that certainly was what was a key element in making our event a success. I cannot tell you how many people, participants, colleagues said, boy, these people are just so kind and so welcoming. So that really, I think just having that spirit is the first tip I would say is, if people feel welcomed and they feel like the city is ready for them, it really helps. I think the other thing is, especially in a pandemic, do not underestimate the efforts that you will have to go through and the cost. I don't even want to know what the final cost of COP26 was. I have some ideas, but part of it was just the health component of it, which is the national health and Scottish health, making sure that everyone had test kits and they uploaded the results. And the minute that someone would have a positive COVID test, there were people at their hotels helping them immediately with, medical facilities, with just making sure that they were feeling taken care of. So don't underestimate it, probably in general, but certainly in a pandemic. I think people need to trust. And that's one of the things that came out of this, is that people are more resilient than we gave them credit for, but they need to trust that everyone organizing the meeting, including the cities, including the venues, are going to take care of them. And I think that's one of the reasons we had so many people getting on airplanes and trains in some cases and coming to COP26, is because they had some assurances that they would be taken care of. So I think that would be in a general sort of hopefully post-pandemic, make sure that the people coming know and they have reassurances that they will be taken care of.
Thank you, Laura. And Zhanna, the partnership approach, where could you see the meetings industry supporting ESSKA further? in the future for you?
Sure. To continue again on Laura's point, I think information is a key, and clear, timely, reassuring information, both to organizers and to delegates, is very important. We are living in a fast-changing world, and if you are able to transmit this information really in a timely manner, in a reassuring manner, I think it's a key. Another point which I would emphasize is flexibility. Again, things are changing so fast, and from our own experience, your team has always been extremely flexible, and that was one of the main reasons why we held our last in-person event in Glasgow. But I think it becomes increasingly important for all the venues to be flexible at different levels, at the level of even contractual obligations, because from experience, we know things change fast, and we want to build up trustful relations, and that's possible when both parties remain quite flexible. And also on a very practical side, I would mention technology. And of course, maybe you're building up a studio or something like that, but for us, this is not a technology. For us, technology is all about software, all about new technical solutions, or even a good portfolio of providers which you can offer immediately of a different price range and different scope. So going along with fast developing technology, I think it's also crucial.
Thank you very much, Zhanna. And on the same point, Jenny, as the delivery side, looking at the Congress world through your vision and onto Paris as your next in person, how can the meetings industry help and support you? What hints and tips would you give the viewers on Host City today?
I think it all comes back to partnership at the end of the day. I think having open, honest dialogues with the venue, the city, all of the stakeholders involved, we can all learn a lot from each other. So I think this is an unprecedented situation where we're all faced by things that we're not necessarily comfortable with, or we don't have experience of. So sitting down together and working it through together. So I think that's the crux for me. And also from a venue or supplier destination point of view, understanding one size doesn't fit all. So what might work for one association or one client is not necessarily going to work for another. We all have very different needs, different membership bases, and so on. So I think just being very honest and not being afraid to say, look, we feel uncomfortable, we need your help, but vice versa. So I think destinations and venues can also glean a lot from the other side. And just working it through together and listening and as I say, partnership for me is the absolute key.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And over to you, Martin, to finish up the session today. From your PCO perspective and your members, very much part of that partnership community in delivering successful conferences in the meetings industry. Thoughts and tips from where the PCOs have expanded their support, or what support could the host destination and venues give to your members? Any thoughts and hints and tips to the Host City viewers today?
Yeah, thanks, Aileen. I think Jenny mentioned a few just with the flexibility of contracts, etc. When you're looking at the destination itself and the suppliers in that supply chain, what I would suggest as well is if we can take a step back a little bit, and the conversations like this are of vital importance, right? Getting people together to talk about the real value of people getting together in person and having that wider audience reach virtually as well. But the real value of when people and academics and scientists, etc., come together, and what do they share and what do they learn, and then what do they develop after that. I think if we can tell more of that story in all of our conversations, especially conversations we're having with policymakers, so that together as an industry-wide voice, we are actually demonstrating that, you know, we can conduct safe events, safe gatherings, safe meetings. We can adhere to strict guidelines, as Laura mentioned, that happened with COP26 in Glasgow and the infrastructure there that supported that. I think the more that we can have a unified voice and coming together to share those messages and share those success stories, I think, you know, we can position ourselves to be able to continue to help associations to deliver that knowledge exchange that their members in their community, it's vital for them. But also we can work with the destinations and the supply chain within those cities and destinations to make sure that everyone's sharing the same content and the same rhetoric. And I think if, coming together again, like conversations like this, but capturing some of that data to share, I think is of vital importance. And we're not quite at that stage yet. There's some that are doing some work in that space, but I think collectively we can all put our heads together and actually come up with a really strong voice that demonstrates, it is safe, it is, realistic for people to get together, and more importantly, for people to get together and to share and network. So that sort of bigger picture concept, I would like to sort of share. We at IAPCO, just to give you an example, and not to take up too much time, but we, for the first time in our 52-year history, reached out to our national PCO associations, many of which are not IAPCO members. But I just felt, as IAPCO CEO, it was very important that those national bodies across the globe, 14 of which in different countries around the world, all shared success stories, failures, but actually understood and how we can communicate to their national and local policy makers and decision makers. So bringing that group together has been a successful venture, I guess, for us. There was no money involved. It's just we're doing it for the right reason. But it was important for us to share that unified voice. And I think more platforms like this, where you get different voices around the table, I think is just fantastic. So congratulations to Host City for bringing such a diverse panel of speakers across the whole 2-day program together, because I think it is vital. So well done. Thank you.
That's absolutely super, Martin, and a fabulous way to finish by saying that as global leaders and professionals delivering the most amazing meetings for your own members in your own sectors, you're actually developing and promoting the meetings industry, of which we all love and support and want to see flourish going into the future. And Visit Scotland's Journey for Change, that talks about the importance of the discussions that conventions and conferences and in-person meetings can bring. They say within the Journey to Change campaign, we meet today to change tomorrow. And we all as an industry are firmly behind that and are so pleased to see those in-person meetings taking place. And we wish you all the very best on the future COP27, Laura, to ESSKA in Paris, and Martin, to you and your fabulous PCO members. All the very best for the future of the meetings industry. And thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge today.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, everyone.